The following program is for adult audiences only.
Time to open up some whoop ass.
We bring the heart to the heartland where the souls collide. Dreams expand, it's not ours to set high. We're bumping chops and running ropes in the world of pro wrestling with the weak will show. From the top rope to the depths below, the warriors in the ring with nowhere to go. Blood, sweat, and tears, it's a battle of the wills. We bring the heart to the heartland. Heart to the heartland. Turn the volume up, they can hear from hell. Everyone's ready, so let's ring the bell. Ding, 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 let's start the clock. HCW, yeah, we're bumping chops.
Welcome back to HCW's Bumping Chops, where the chops hurt and the words mean nothing. I'm your host, Billy Simmons, co-owner of Heartland Championship Wrestling. Joining alongside me today is my co-host and good friend, Bobby Casey.
What's up, everybody? Thanks again for joining us for another episode of Bumping Chops, episode 17 to be exact. Bumping Chops is proudly presented to you by the Chubby Buddy Studio. And to be sure to get notified of when new episodes drop, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Also follow the Chubby Buddy Studio on all social platforms like Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok.
And to get the latest information for Heartland Championship Wrestling, follow us at hcwlive23 on all social media platforms. That is hcwlive23.
And this week's episode, we are going to break down the road to the big show of HCW. And we'll have a little bit of fun in between, but we're also going to be joined by a special guest. Would you like to kind of like segue into that?
A very special guest. Somebody that is an out of luck champion, an asshole.
World's favorite asshole.
And a very good friend of mine. Let's welcome Kitt Reaver.
Kitt Reaver.
Oh, hello. And I take that compliment because as everyone knows, I am the world's favorite asshole. Because the thing is about being an asshole is you have to be a favorite a little bit. You have to be a little liked.
And it's on the shirt.
Exactly. That's the other thing too. It's a good tagline.
We did not plan this out.
It sells shirts.
Like we need to have like a text like, what are you wearing?
Yeah. I usually have my hoodie on, but it's finally starting to warm up instead of this negative bullshit we was going through.
So you can sweat your weight out. Is that you wear a sweat?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Let some of that out.
Is there a rule that you shouldn't wear your own shirt in wrestling? Like, do you just not do that?
No,
I don't. I think that's actually more appropriate. See, it's the opposite. Like with music.
Yeah, I was going to say bands, they don't want to wear their own stuff.
The superstition is like if you're going to the show that you're going to watch, you're never supposed to, you look like a nerd if you wear the same band that you're going to see. That's just always been that way. Like if I'm going to see my favorite band, I'm not going to wear their shirt to their show.
Really?
But yeah. So at least that's how it is.
I've always bought their shirt.
Yeah, you always buy it, but you don't really go there wearing their shirt. I'll buy merch there, but I don't go there and then put it on to wear while... Unless you're like a 14 scene kid or you're like, I don't know, there's just a weird like culture that you're not supposed to do that. No, that's always been that way. Yeah.
But at least keep it the same genre.
Yeah. But it's usually in like hardcore metal. That's usually kind of the big thing. But in wrestling, yes, I feel like it's actually more on the course to wear your shirt. I've worn my shirts multiple times during, but then I also think it's very funny to wear people's other people's shirts.
Oh, yeah.
So that's always fun.
Kid likes wearing the opponent's shirt most of the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or something way out of left field, I've noticed.
And if they think that I paid for that shirt, then the joke's on them, because I definitely didn't pay for that shirt.
You were just running the merch table that day.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, hey, you've seen an episode of this, right?
I've seen every episode, yes.
Sweet. We got a multi-fan. Ooh.
Yeah. I got to keep up with
What's been your favorite one so far?
I watched the Chance one was pretty good. The Chance one was solid. I did like that one. The Ray Leone one was pretty solid. I did like that one too. But yeah, probably Chance's. Chance's was pretty insightful.
Sweet.
Nice.
Well,
he's an okay champion.
Well, I mean, since you already know what's going on, I'm going to start this off with Today in Wrestling History. How's that? And
Okay.
We'll segue into finding out about Kitt. since I know very little, but I think this will be fun. All right, so in 2003, March 3rd, 2003, Stone Cold Steve Austin made his first appearance on Raw since he famously walked out of the company the previous summer. I don't remember him coming back. I remember him walking out, but I don't remember the big comeback.
I don't remember the big comebacks. I don't know if they promoted it as a big comeback. I don't remember it being a big comeback.
Yeah, I mean,
because I think Vince was still pretty pissed when that all went down. So I don't think he got. I don't think he got some big, humongous return. Like it definitely, because I would remember it. Like it definitely wasn't.
I was curious if this is the one where he came back as the guest.
That might be it. The guest
thing leading up to WrestleMania.
Yeah. That might be what it was. Okay. Because I don't remember the pop, because I always remember like there's the Backlash pop and there's the Raw pop. Like when he comes back, like I don't remember that pop at all. So I don't think it was probably that huge.
Okay, well, we don't remember that pop, but I did have a question. I know Billy's not very good with history or trivia. Figured I'd test your knowledge.
Okay.
I guess in March 3rd of 2008, the Cruiserweight Championship was pulled out of
circulation.
Contention. Yeah, contention. This person won it in 2008 as being the last Cruiserweight until 2016. Can you guess who that is?
This one's tricky because 2000, well, no, it wouldn't have been any of the, you said 2008?
2008 was the last time it was contended until it came back in 2016. And this person was named the last ever Cruiserweight up until 2016.
Until 2016? Ooh, that's interesting. See, my brain, and I'm getting it mixed up because in my brain, I was going to say Billy Kidman, but it's not because Billy Kidman is who won it for WCW last before the buyout for WCW to WWE. So it's not Billy Kidman. So if I had to say anyone, I want to say maybe it was, I'm going to go a wild shot and maybe say it was Hurricane.
I mean, no, but it was Mr. Hornswoggle.
Okay, well, so they made it a joke match. Okay.
Yeah. And then it came back in 2016
for the Cruiserweight Classic.
TJ Perkins in 2016.
The NXT Cruiserweight Classic, yep.
Hey, so were you bigger WCW or WWF fan at the time?
It really, I was a big flip back and forth guy because I wasn't really a promotion diehard for either one. I was more a superstar diehard. So I would always flip to the segments that had my guys in it. So Sting was my number one. So I always would tune in to see whatever Sting was doing. But then I had my other favorite, I love the cruiserweight matches. So I'd watch any of the cruiserweight matches. And back in WCW, those were always fun. If you put one of those cruiserweight,
there's so many people.
Yeah. If you put one of those matches on today on WWE screen, it would be considered a classic. But like any of the matches with like Juventud and Ray and Chris Jericho, I would watch those. I was a big Canyon guy. I loved Canyon too. Even when he was Mortis, like I loved everything that he did. DDP, another big one. But then on the WWF side, I was a big Stone Cold guy. I was a big Mick Foley guy, a big Undertaker guy. So I really would I would sit at home on Monday nights and it was back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Usually during commercial breaks. What was really great, and I think it was all coincidental because it seemed like anytime there was a commercial, the other one would be coming right back on from commercial. So you could kind of like segue back and forth. And if one segment wasn't as good as the other one, that's how I decided. So this actually makes more sense on why my ADD is so bad. It's just me in front of the TV, when I'm young, just like flipping back and forth over and over, trying to figure out what segment to watch.
Nice.
Did you watch the 6 Feet Under with DDP?
Yes, I did. Yep. I've been
very informative.
Yep, I love DDP. Obviously, just everything he's did in WCW. Not so much in WWE. I didn't love the Stalker angle at all. That was pretty awful. Yeah. But even post WWE career, I follow his DDP yoga stuff a lot. I've done it before. It's amazing. It's so good. Even just to watch the success stories, like the most recent one I've been watching with Lex Luger is phenomenal.
The Butterbean one was pretty wild.
Yeah, Butterbean. He's got Butterbean Mobile, where Butterbean's getting ready to do an indie event here in the next few months. Yeah, it's wild.
That's super crazy.
And he was like hunched over like my 8-year-old grandpa was. It was like, dang.
And it's not hard. Like I did it for about 6 months, and it adds like so much like mobility to you as far as like it's resistance based. So you don't do anything with weights or really anything else, and it's everything that you can just do at the house. It's just you're doing a resistance against yourself basically. It's really amazing.
Nice.
Well, hey man, why don't we start this off by kind of telling people like who doesn't know anything about you? Why don't you kind of give us the brief rundown of who Kitt Reaver is?
Oh man, the lore. It's a deep,
I'm sure you could write a book though.
It's a deep, heavy lore. Let's see. I guess it starts with before wrestling even was a thing. I've always been like a performer. I've always been kind of someone likes the limelight and likes to be. Well, I say that. Not in my personal life. I'm very private in my personal life. But when it comes to performing, I love performing. So it all started with music. So I used to be in a metal band from the time I was 17 until I was about 22. And for that entire time, I was on the road. And we wrote multiple albums, and I got to tour the entire country and play with some of my favorite bands. And it was awesome. So it all kind of started there. That's where like the whole being in front of a big crowd and having that energy really kind of all started, was being able to feel that, especially being in a hardcore kind of band, and having that energy. I knew that like I loved that aspect of that. But fortunately for being a touring musician, the pay is shit. And you get next to nothing, and you're eating ramen noodles every night. And you're trying to find creative ways to eat your ramen noodles, whether that's crushing them up and treating them like potato chips, or, figuring out anything you can do to make it decent. And also going into Walmart and stealing as much food as you can from a Walmart on your days off, which is fun. It's a great rock and roll life, very fun rebel lifestyle when you're younger. But as you start to get a little older, you're like, this isn't so much for me anymore. So I took a break from all of that. But then there was always that itch. Like there was always that I wanted to get back into performing and doing something. And so then at that point, I knew there was a place in Kansas City called KCXW that I knew I wanted to give it a go. I'd always been a big wrestling fan, and I was big in sports in high school. I ran track, I wrestled, I did powerlifting. So I did a lot of it already, and already kind of had the base to get started. So I had a feeling I would either walk in and I would do it and I would hate it, or I would get in there and I would immediately love it. So I remember going to my first practice, and there's guys that still I work with today that were there. Like Leo D was there. Some really great guys that I was able to be in the ring with, and for my tryout match. And I just knew, first bump I took, I was like, yep, this is it. I love doing this. Just from the get-go, I was hooked. And then from there, it just was nonstop. I went to training all the time. And I was a little bit more unconventional. I just hit the ground running. I immediately started, once I felt I had a good base and foundation, I went to every show that I could find in Kansas, and worked with any of the old vets that I could find, because I wanted to learn not just I knew I could do the moves and do all the flashy stuff, but I wanted to learn the storytelling and the psychology and how to do everything that I need to learn how to do. So I hit the ground running and went to, Hoisington, Kansas, and Wichita, Kansas, and Hutchinson, Kansas, and worked with guys like Big Dan and Flex and Billy, anywhere I could find. Worked with guys like Lenny, any of the older vets that could like give me advice. I would always go early, set up, do my thing, and then pull them aside and ask them to show me stuff. And then it's kind of progressed from there. And then now here we are. I think I've been doing this now for 7 years, something like that. And now we're going through it. And I guess the big gap there was that then I went to XWE, and where I was Billy's best Liberty champion to ever exist, and then proceeded to then become the XWE heavyweight champion by beating Drake Gallows in a cage match. So
what a good match.
Yeah, that's one of my top matches still to this day.
Oh, wow. And I don't hear 𝘊𝘰𝘮𝑡𝑚 very much. I mean, I know where it's at, but I was like, man, he's just dropping H-bombs over here.
Listen, 𝘊𝘰𝘮𝑡𝑚 used to be a spot. When Dan Adams ran 𝘊𝘰𝘮𝑡𝑚, Kansas, that place was packed to the rim all the time.
The great thing about
𝘊𝘮𝑡𝑚 is tornadoes.
Yeah. The great thing about that place was so much fun. I was still at the time rocking I'm just going to do 1,000 amazing moves in a match kind of thing. So one of my first matches down there in 𝘊𝘰𝘮𝑡𝑚 was with Vale, actually. And I need to find the footage because it actually was a pretty solid match. I'm sure I would look back on it today and be like, why am I doing all this? But it was a great, like, the crowd is amazing. It's packed to the gills. They have this amazing, like, boxing light that looks right over the ring. So the crowd is kind of dim. You can't really see the crowd, but you can hear them, which is amazing. And then it's just boom, spotlight on the ring. The footage looks just so cinematic. It looks so different than what you see today. And it reminds me of watching like a WWE main event where they do that, where they kill the crowd lights and you just see the main match, which I wish we could do at our venue. That'd be amazing. But yeah, 𝘊𝘰𝘮𝑡𝑚, very underrated place. I love going to those shows. And I mean, every show you were looking at 200-300 people at least.
Yeah, wow. For sure.
So I guess you mentioned that you were a performer, or I guess a metal band. I think that's a trend with wrestlers. Like they're into the metal thing, and somebody's done some sort of music somewhere down the run.
Not all of us. I hate metal.
He hates metal.
He claims he hates metal.
I think
Metallica is metal.
I think it's an easy transition because the lifestyle is so similar. Like being a touring musician and being when you do the drives, hashtag do the drives, it's very, very similar. When you're performing, like, for example, when I'm doing music with my band, we're getting in a van, we have our trailer attached to the van, we drive 4 hours, we show up to the venue, we play our set. Our set is, 45 minutes to an hour. We unload, we get paid, and then we move on to the next town. It's not much different from doing wrestling. If you're doing a weekend jaunt, let's say I'm going to wrestle Friday, Saturday, Sunday. If I'm going to wrestle Friday, okay, me and 3 other guys pack in a car, or if we get 5 in a car, as many people as we can get in a car. That way we can split the gas, so it's cheaper. Yep. So we put as many people in a car to make things as cheap as possible. Then you drive down, like Billy's getting ready to do the drive tomorrow, right? So
Amarillo.
Yep. So boom, you get as many people in the car as you can. If you're doing a 3-day weekend, you go to the first town and then you turn and burn, and you go to the next town the next night, get your pay, do your thing. The only thing different is doing music. You're performing a little bit longer, and then your wrestling match is, we'll say, an average of 12 minutes. So the time difference. But as far as the lifestyle and the way it all works, it is eerily the same. So I think that's why it works so well for musicians to make that jump, because there's not much difference in what they're doing. It's just a different style of performance.
Okay, so I've never asked this before. So you're getting in a car for wrestling or a metal concert or whatever. What 4 people are you taking with you?
I generally always have the same car because it's my favorite car I've ever done. And if it's me and 4, we did a van, so we had more than 4. But it was me, Billy, Leo D, Bubba, and who else was on that one, Billy?
Paradox.
Yep. So those 4 plus me, that's my crew when it comes to those drives.
I think the only one that's ever really brought it up was Aaron when he was talking about, almost the car being in the green room of wrestling, like you're just the mind behind wrestling.
Oh, bro, their car rides are, especially like when you're in a group that loves this business as much as we did and do. Like, them car rides can be so insightful. So everyone trying to make everyone better in the car, talking all kinds of shit. Kitt Reaver does stupid stuff all the time, so
I do.
I don't know. We had that 2-car train. That was wild when I sprayed the pepper spray into Halsey's radiator. That was wild. I forgot all about it until Daniel brought it up.
Fun.
But no, I guess let's get into a little bit something more personal, I guess, that I've noticed. I mean, I haven't known you very long. I've known you, I think your first match when you for the Halloween show. That was the first time I got to call you out as a wrestler. I've talked to you in the back, but I didn't know who I was talking to. I was just like, who's Kitt? You don't know who Kitt is? No. Like, I don't know his name. And then there's the guy that does this. I was like, okay, the sound guy. And he goes, no, he's a wrestler. I was like, oh, okay, my bad. But no, I noticed that during matches that you sit there and you take notes. For whether it be new wrestlers or people that you find close or that can take, I guess, criticism. Yeah. Like, did you learn that, or is that something that you kind of, I guess, were taught coming up in the business?
As far so there's kind of a multi-layer reason why I do that, and it's not just for myself, but it's also for everybody else too. I get the privilege of doing it for HCW because Billy trusts me enough to be able to give feedback to people that are younger, or not even just younger, but people that might want advice, or things that I might see from a different perspective than somebody else might see. Because the way anybody sees it, like, even though, like, if I compare myself to like a guy like Paradox, right? Me and Bear Paradox have been doing this about the same time, and we've done about the same amount. We can give each other advice, and there's no like, yeah, you're an asshole for giving me this advice. There's none of that. It's very much like I can see a perspective that he might not be able to see in the moment, and then we can get outside of it and be like, well, this is what I would have done differently. And then you can go back, look at the match and say, okay, actually, this makes sense on why I would have done this differently. So I do it for that purpose. But the other purpose is to understand also the flow of a show. So if I'm watching a show, I don't ever want to be in the situation where anyone has seen the same thing multiple times. I always want to give the fans and the crowd something new every time they see me in the ring. So if I'm going to start the show, then you're going to see obviously not everything, but a lot of cool stuff. But if I'm, the co-main, then I'm going to watch the entire show so I can sit there and watch and study and see what everyone is doing. So when I get to my match, I can say, you know what? This guy already did this. Fuck that. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do this now, because why would I do something that this guy did and it might not work? And now they look like a fool. So now I'm going to do this and make sure it works and look cooler. So it's just a matter of, there's a couple different layers to it. But the big thing too is just having that full understanding of the flow of the show and kind of making sure everything goes in a very nice, cohesive scale where we're going all the way up here and we're getting the crowd exactly where we want them. So there's a lot of reasons to it. And then, like I said, the big thing too that I love doing, if anybody ever wants to listen to it, is giving advice. I love giving advice. I've been doing it long enough that I like to think that I have a certain perspective on things a little bit different than other people do. Because like I said, when I started out, I was one of those people that I'm getting my shit in. And that's what I was about. I mean, it took me a while to adjust to, well, I can preserve my body and not be hurting all the time and still have the same reaction, and do everything the exact same without having to do all these crazy moves. And I can still tell an amazing story in 10 to 12 minutes, and I can do one big move and the crowd's going to do the exact same thing if I know how to do the match right. So a lot of different reasons for it, but that's kind of the overall gist.
When do you find it? When do you find it to be a good time to actually talk to them? Is that usually after the show, or is it like usually right after the match?
I like to do it as soon as they get back, just because it's fresh on their mind then, and that's usually, I know that's how my brain works. Is right. when I get back from the curtain, I know in my brain I am analyzing everything that happened in that match. So I'm going through and I'm thinking, okay, I know this is where I did something wrong. This is where this went well. This is where we got this reaction. This is where we got this. Especially, let's say if it's something where I'm building something with somebody and we're gonna have multiple matches and I'm gonna beat the crap out of somebody multiple times. I want to make sure that what I'm doing in that realm is I'm building it up through the entire situation. So if I'm working them and I can hear the crowd is really loving one thing, then I'm going to make sure that I play to that in the next match and the next match. and wherever, how many matches we go. So I'm also wanting to make sure I'm analyzing everything when I come out so it's fresh on my brain and I can digest it a little bit better. I think if I wait too long, then I get into the realm of I don't really remember whatever the spot might have been at that point.
And the good thing with Kitt is Kitt's always been somebody to listen. Like, I trust him a lot with a lot of what we do. Like, he's right there along all of us. You've seen it in the back. A lot of the people that are listening to this don't get to see that stuff he does behind the scenes, but he's earned that role. And the way he's earned that role is he's never been shy about receiving feedback either. There was times where I just told him I hated that. And there's times I'd be like, that was fucking awesome. Good job. Like, in the times I told him I hated it, he'd ask why. And I'd give him my feedback and he'd take that and he'd use it. And, it was Kitt that started doing some comedy stuff early on that I absolutely hated, but he kind of opened my eyes to some of that. And then now I'm more open to it now just because of the little stuff that he was like, here, let me do this. And I promise you it's going to work. And then went out and proved that it worked. So, he's earned that respect and that loyalty and ability that I trust him to go talk to any of my kids and give them feedback, and I expect them to listen. And so,
right. And it's funny you say that because I ask questions like if somebody says, hey, try to do this, like I'll say, okay, so how is it? Like, I want them to explain it to me because I feel like if I don't get it, like if they want me to like announce something in this certain way or whatever, if I don't understand it, how are they going to do it? It's not that I'm trying to like question you because I know nothing about wrestling, but like if it didn't make sense to me when you said it, I'm like, wait, what did you want me to do? Yeah. Like, I just never want that to be like the thing, like I'm questioning your thing. Like, no, it just didn't make sense to me. Like, now if you explain it to me, like how you want me to do it, like to where I can make it make sense to them.
Gotcha.
So it's, like I was just curious, like is it hard to receive any type of feedback if you're a new guy and stuff like that? So I
think it's all in the way you deliver it. I don't ever present feedback in a negative way because we've all had bad matches. We've all had something negative happen in a match. It's inevitable. It's a contact sport, and you're bound, how many, you watch football, how many times does somebody fumble? How many times is there an interception? How many times is there anything that doesn't go your way in any sport that you watch? It's just human error. So I don't ever understand the idea of criticizing somebody in a super negative way. I think there's ways to do things very, in a positive, constructive criticism way, where I can give criticism in a way that might be maybe not harsh, but firm, and say, this didn't look good for this reason, but so let's try this. And this can be the outcome next time we do this. So I think there's just ways and the way to receive it. I don't really, I've never understood or really got the mindset of like kind of bullying your critiques. I don't think that's ever the way to approach it, especially when you're working with somebody that's newer, getting into the business.
Who's your favorite person to receive feedback from? Because we've heard Drake talk about it. He's posted stuff about it. But like, who's your favorite person in the independent wrestling world to receive feedback from, whether it be good or bad?
There's a few. Drake is one of them. I learned so much from Drake when we worked our stuff. Malico is another one. Malico was a great one for me. When I was running heel for a hot minute, he's really kind of the person that sparked kind of that switch I needed to really understand how to work heel the way it needs to be worked and how to work the crowd when I'm being heel. So Malico was really great at that for me. Billy, obviously, that kind of goes without even any need for an answer there. I listen to everything Billy says. Paradox, once again, because we've just been doing this for so long together that we can watch each other's matches. And what's great is and also we've worked so many times together and traveled so much together that we can watch each other's matches and know, like, even we can tell when we mess up, even if the crowd, like if we do something and the crowd doesn't even notice it, Paradox come to me and say, oh, what was this supposed to be? And it'll be like, oh yeah, it was this. And that's a great thing to have is, even though somebody else might not have picked up on it, having someone that close that knows the way you work and the way you're doing things that can call you out on that kind of stuff is really nice. So probably those three probably would be the big ones. Bob Evans is another one. I've run the road with Bob Evans a few times, and he gives great feedback. Working the shows with him and Tim both. Especially if you sit down and talk to them and ask them to watch what you're doing and you want the advice, they will give you really great advice. So any of those guys. And then even guys in our locker room now that I really just respect as individuals, like Austin Reddick. I'll always listen to any advice from him. Any Heidi is another great one. She's always got great advice. So any of those guys that I respect, tremendously. I love listening to any kind of feedback or criticism they might have.
And that's why I always ask questions like, you want this way, right?
You ever do something in a match and go, man, fucking Krill's gonna talk shit on this?
Oh yeah, all the time, all the time. Even in our own matches, when we were working in the Leavenworth Hotel. So the thing with me and Creel is we were what the kids would call stiff, but only to each other. We do like to beat the shit out of each other. But sometimes we can take it a little too far and hit each other a little too hard. But we do call each other out on it.
He's a chameleon though, just from the outside looking in, he's a little bit of a chameleon. You wouldn't guess that he would be very critical, for somebody like you. I would never have got that until you said something. Oh yeah. Yeah. Because like I said, he's done it so long too, that he knows what he's doing, and he knows, and he, once again, kind of similar background as far as high school sports goes, and he was great. He was a great amateur wrestler, so he knows what he's talking about when it comes to all of this kind of stuff. He can pick it, he can watch it and pick it apart, and see exactly what should have been where and how something should have been. Okay, so when you think of Kansas wrestling, independent, whatever, who's the first wrestler that comes to mind? First wrestler that comes to mind in Kansas wrestling? Oh, myself, obviously. No, that's a hard one, honestly. Because I'm trying to think of Kansas wrestling. You can name 100 if you wanted to, but I just figured. Yeah, I mean, there's some guys that obviously have been doing this for a long time in Kansas that deserve the recognition, like JC Thunder, Big Dog, Kyle King, and that's Kyle Long or Kyle King. Because that's another guy. Long. Kyle King's a guy that I will listen to everything he has to say. So he's another big one too. But for me, Kansas wrestling is those kind of pillar guys that have been doing it for so long. More because right now we're kind of in this age with Kansas wrestling anyway, where you have these kind of solid promotions, right? Like HCW has been here for now a year strong now, and now we're only building, but we built off a great foundation with a great locker room, and we're just going to keep moving forward, right? And then XWE for a long time to me was kind of the center point of Kansas wrestling. I felt when you talked about Kansas wrestling, and you were talking about where you wanted to be booked in Kansas, to me it was always XWE. That was the number one place you wanted to try to go get work. So for me, those were always staple places. So any of those guys, Blade, is a staple of XWE wrestling and HCW wrestling. Paradox, same thing. Paradox was doing this since not day one, but almost day one with XWE to HCW. Kuda, same thing. Any of these guys, the Cursed, all these guys are, to me, the guys that really kind of paved the way to give us the ability to have HCW where it's at now. It's from the transition from XWE and getting XWE where it was. Because I don't know if you ever went to any of those XWE shows, but man, those XWE shows were kind of magical. We really had something really special going on there. And then to kind of see the transition to HCW now has really been awesome. And you got to think, we're just in our first year. So those guys really paved the way to get where we're at now, is where this is all going, is, JC Thunder, Big Dog, Blade, The Cursed,
Those guys, Kyle King, those guys to me are kind of the staples of Kansas wrestling.
I'm gonna throw a couple in there. So Tommy Snow, Flex Reed,
yes, Flex Reed.
Man, it's just Niles.
Is he Missouri or Kansas?
I mean,
it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, pretty much.
I just didn't know if there was like a border war.
Anytime Niles was in Kansas, like he wrestled a lot in Kansas. So like he's got to be mentioned in my eyes. Dan Adams,
me,
Lenny.
Lenny is one of them.
Yeah.
And like you said, I've only been to one XWE show. So like, but I've always looked at myself as a terrible fan. Like, and I've always said this about Josh. Like, Josh is like that. Like, his brother is like the guy that can like give you like positive feedback. Like, dude, I'm so proud of you. Like, I've never been that person. Like, not that I don't want to do that. It's just never been my nature to say good job. But I also can't get enthusiastic about something that I'm watching until I go home, and then I kind of like soak it in. I'm like, whoa, I just saw this. Kind of like Drake doing that that moonsault. Like, I had to go home and like I didn't realize what I saw live until like I went home and I rewatched it probably 300 times. I was like, damn. Like, yeah. So I'm a terrible wrestling fan. One, I can't get involved like that, or else like I don't know. Like, and I'm sure that other people feel this way, but I appreciate it more now from where I'm at rather than in a seat behind a table.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It's a different perspective when you get to see the way the sausage is made when it comes to a wrestling show. I think there's a different found respect for it, because I don't think people realize how much really goes into a day-to-day of getting a successful show going.
Did you ever watch the Saturday night? It's the movie Saturday Night.
Yeah,
it's the build-up. That's what it 100% reminds me of for a show.
It is very much that.
The very first night of Saturday Night Live, they have a movie about it, about how they decided to either go live or just record. Yeah, and they chose to go live.
Yeah, there's so many nuts and bolts to everything that we do, and on top of that, there's so much stuff that just changes even a day of. Like, there's between maybe something goes wrong or something goes right. There is so much that just happens on that day to day that you have to live in the world of chaos, and accepting that and understanding that and be okay with that, because that's where we live on those Saturday nights when we're doing this and we're getting that show going, and we're, all the way from, 4 hours, even before that, we start setting up at like 10 a.m., right? So from 10 a.m. all the way till we break down and get out of there at 11 p.m., it is just go, 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 go in every sense of the word.
Sure. Well, I guess my last question for you is I started asking this question with Kane, and I think it's kind of I think it's something that I'll probably keep doing. If you could have all power in the world of wrestling in a whole, what's one thing you would change about wrestling?
Oh, that's a good one.
This the last time the screen froze. So
okay. And if I could change anything in wrestling.
Yeah, the power, all the money, you could change it.
So Kane's was, I don't know if you watched his yet, but Kane's was he would change the access that fans have to wrestling. And vice versa.
That is good. Because it is a little, I don't think it's so much limited, but a little bit. I think it would be access in a different way in regards to independent wrestling specifically, because obviously I think there's a lot of access to WWE and AEW and even companies like GCW and stuff like that, where I feel like we are a little, the independent companies like HCW and XWE and KCXW and any of the independent promotions, I don't think people realize how hard it is to get visibility into what you are trying to do and trying to get a crowd. So trying to bring that in. So I wish there was a way to really have the overall ability to promote these shows, because once you get that crowd, right, there's no problem in keeping them. Like XWE was a great testament to that. When I started going there, the way the crowd built to where we were selling those shows out was amazing and was great to witness. And so I think, for example, and maybe it's a little bit on the promoting, but I just don't feel like there's a lot of accessibility. Even when I'm here in town in Kansas City, I don't see a lot of like local promotion as far as what is there for local wrestling. There's nothing in the pitch which are like our local event thing that tell you. There's nothing online that if you go to like what's happening in Kansas City this weekend, even if there is a wrestling show, it's not promoted on Google or anything like that. There's no commercials for it. There's
unless you pay for it.
Yeah, all these things are things that, and for independent promotions, it's all stuff that's very expensive. And a lot of promotions can't just come out of pocket on things like this. You're talking hundreds, if not thousands of dollars to get this kind of promotion. So I wish there was a bit of change in that to help better establish these independent companies and almost treat them as, up and coming businesses, as startup businesses. Because like in the world of economics and everything, a lot of startup businesses get help and assistance. It'd be great if independent companies would also have that kind of availability and accessibility to be able to better help promote and get more people in seats, and give them more access to the shows that everyone really busts their ass to put on.
Yeah, I get a lot of like, it's almost like who you know rather than not just what you know. In this, at least from where I sit.
A lot of times it is, and it gets things like even trying to find a venue. A lot of times it's who you know and who can cut you the greatest deal to do these kind of things. So it'd be nice to just be able to kind of diminish those costs and have more accessibility for everybody. Because in the end, it's a win-win for everybody. The more somebody can book these independent shows, the more our locker rooms get to work, and it's more shows for all the talent to go and travel and do these shows. And it's more access to independent wrestling for the fans. So there's not really a lose scenario in there.
Right. Well, did you want to start this, or do you have more questions?
One more thing. So do you think, with kind of piggybacking off of what you said with that last question, do you think the way they did back in the olden days with the territory system, that if it could be made to work again, that would be the route to go?
I wouldn't be opposed to it. I can see why a lot of people would, and unfortunately, I don't think it'll ever happen due to the bigger companies not allowing that to happen. But yeah, I don't think territories would be a bad thing, and I think it would give more. I think it would give the workers more opportunities than what they have right now. So I wouldn't be opposed to it at all. I think it would give everybody the ability to get on the road and be more consistent with the workload that they might want to take on. Because obviously every worker is different. Some people want to work every day of the week and other people don't. So it really depends on the workload. But even just having that accessibility would be kind of a game changer for a lot of the guys that want to do it on a regular basis.
Go.
What did you mean by borders, by the way? Is that like just like the Kansas, Oklahoma, like?
No, so they used to do territories, and there was like different areas. So
are we talking like the big stage, or like independents also had this?
I mean, there wasn't really independents like you see nowadays. It was more an area ran
like Northwest,
the
Gotcha.
Northwest, or the mid states, or just different areas, and there would be a champion, and then they would spend 6 months in this territory, and then they'd go to the next territory for 6 months, and just kind of move around.
Like a tour rather than like a show.
Yeah, but like that territory would draw like real big numbers and thousands, get people in the doors when the big names come in, but those big names traveled all over to all the territories, and that's what brought people in. And then you would have the people that, once they brought into that territory, now it's that territory's job to keep their numbers up, because, okay, you had our champion for 6 months, keep on it, or someone else is going to take over your area.
Gotcha. Okay. That makes more sense.
Yeah.
Because at first I was like, wait, you mean like Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri? I was like,
50 territories now.
So did you want to add anything else to anything more about Kitt, or did you want me to get right into the show?
I think we can jump into the show. We've talked about this asshole enough, so...
There's never enough. There's never enough.
Never enough.
Not the world's favorite. No, like I said, Road to Legacy. I think this is. I mean, from last year to this year, what I noticed more is you had more crowd interaction. I think just to display this show from the outside looking in. I think you had way more crowd interaction from. Were you at the last one?